This is Comic Support, where we introduce comics to new readers and comic book superfans. It's been about 2 months since Marvel's Fresh Start launched, and in this issue of Comic Support, we're going to take a look at the books that made the biggest splash. Let's dive in. Welcome to Comic Support. I'm Leon Scorpius, and boy, has Marvel's Fresh Start got me spending some money. The summer's been a bit crazy on my wallet because the state of comic books is so good. I was really worried that the shakeup between writers and artists on their books was really just going to be a band-aid, but the new creative teams have actually proven that they have fresh new stories to tell while still remaining familiar for new readers and old readers alike to enjoy. Before we begin, I want to thank Taymation Studios for bringing you this video. You can catch all of our latest videos by subscribing and hitting the bell for notifications. If you enjoyed this video and other Comic Support videos, consider giving us a like and comment below on what comic books you'll be picking up this week. I want to go back by talking about the Fresh Start image that was released when Marvel announced that they were going to make some big shakeups to their ongoing titles. It had only been a month since Marvel had announced Marvel Legacy, an effort to go back into the legacy numbering system for comics and a nod that they had not forgotten about the history of its beloved characters. But even at this point of their legacy, it was clear that Marvel comic book characters had gone through quite a rough history in the past few years. Thor became unworthy to wield the hammer, and Jane Foster took his place as the new Thor. Peter Parker was defeated by Dr. Octopus, and his entire life and body was taken over in Superior Spider-Man. On the X-Men side, Wolverine died, Cyclops died, Jean Grey was still dead, mutants were dying again. Thanks, Inhumans. The Fantastic Four were now the Fantastic Two. Captain America had aged and passed the mantle to Sam Wilson Captain America. Then he became young again, so there were two Captain Americas, except this time he was Hydra and evil. In Civil War II, Bruce Banner died. He was shot by Hawkeye. Tony Stark was put in a coma by Captain Marvel. And also, Hydra Cap killed Black Widow. Oh, and the city of Las Vegas. Yeah, I almost stopped reading comic books altogether after Secret Empire. And after reading all of those things out loud, it makes it sound like the last few years in comics were extremely depressing. And in some cases they were. A lot of readers at the point were tired and fatigued of all of these event books and tie-ins and changes to all their favorite characters because everything had to make sense, or as much sense as they could, to all the events that they were bringing together. And I get it. Comic book stories and characters can get stale fast, especially after decades of writing. Sometimes you have to break the heroes down to bring them back up again. But it still sucks having to read all of those bad things that happen to our favorite characters, especially since it came at all of the reader's expense, having to read all of the tie-ins to make sense of anything that happened and follow any of the characters with the glimmer of hope that some of them would recover and be better than they once were. And Fresh Start finally delivered on all of that build-up by changing the landscape of Marvel Comics in a number of important ways. First, they decided they were going to ease off on the number of events that they were doing, which was awesome. Great decision. Helps my pocketbook. I'm still spending tons of money on comics. However, it is not because of all the tie-ins for events. It is actually following individual stories of all these comic book characters and allowing me to fall in love with them all over. Second, they essentially undid all of the bad things that I just talked about. Natasha came back into comics almost immediately. Thanks, Matt Rosenberg. Also, the city of Las Vegas came back. Thanks, Donny Cates. They even brought Jean Grey back to life. Thanks again, Matt. The third and most important thing that I think they did was pair up the comic book creators with the characters and the story genres that they love. It sucks when publishers and editors force stories onto the writers and just inhibit their creativity because certain objectives need to get done. If I've learned anything in the last few years of reading comic books, it's that comic book creators are nerds too. They love what they do. Otherwise, they wouldn't go through this crazy. It's a really good time for comic books, and I really hope that as a community we can come together and support all these brand new stories. I've already been going to some of my coworkers and introducing comics to some of their kids and saying, hey, this is a thriving industry that can do really well. There's some really amazing stories and fresh starts for everyone of all ages, all readers, and most importantly, bringing the fans like you and me back into the comic book stores. Now, back to the poster. The heavy hitters are back. Spider-Man, Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Captain America, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Deadpool. All of these characters were prominent in the poster, and they were prominent with new fresh start titles. This is the House of Mouse that we're talking about, which means there's nothing more important than selling toys, movie tickets, theme park tickets, take my money, you name it. But to promote all that, all your favorite characters need to stay alive. Unless you're Infinity War. Too soon? The poster accounts for all the movies and TV shows that are upcoming. You have Ant-Man and the Wasp, Venom, Punisher, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage. Sorry, Iron Fist, maybe season 2? On the X-Men side, Jean Grey is alive and well. X-Men Red by Tom Taylor has been kicking butt and has been an instant fan favorite. Wolverine is also back, although we don't have all the details on how. We're reading The Hunt for Wolverine currently and The Return of Wolverine coming soon. And Gambit. Wow. Who knew that the Cajun had so much primetime in him lately, thanks to Miss Kelly Thompson and her love for Rogue and Gambit. And last but not least, because I know what you're thinking, they suppressed all the diversity! No sir, I say to you, nay. Jim Zub's Champions have been the perfect place to continue the stories of our younger heroes. I've always believed that some of these younger heroes got thrown into the limelight way too forcefully. Didn't X-Men Schism teach us anything? Wolverine was right! You don't force kids to fight your wars! Black Widow was teaching the Champions on how to be murderers, for crying out loud. These young heroes need to grow, be their own selves, and find loving audiences naturally. And Fresh Start has been the best place to do that. Jim Zub's Champions is great. Kelly Thompson's West Coast Avengers is also going to be great. These are two titles that if you want to see some of the more younger, diverse characters and the future heroes of Marvel Comics, they are in good hands. Oh, did I mention the Fantastic Four are coming back? So now that we've talked about everything that Fresh Start did to revitalize our interest in Marvel Comics, let's talk about the 10 Fresh Start comic books that I've been enjoying the most and have been added to my pull list. Tony Stark Iron Man by Dan Slott and Valerio Scinti. In Tony Stark Iron Man #1, Dan Slott tells a quintessential, fun adventure story where Tony Stark has to take down the crazy, large creature that is Fin Fang Foom. There's nothing but action and adventure in this comic, and what I love is you can give this comic to anybody who is a fan of Tony Stark, and they immediately will recognize that this is a Tony Stark book. I think Dan Slott is doing a great job on Tony Stark. I've never really regularly read Iron Man, but this is definitely making me want to follow along for the ride. Deadpool by Scotty Young and Nick Klein, and allowing Scotty Young to hit the reset button is a great move to let new readers jump on without all of the crazy that had been done to Deadpool in the last few years. You basically have a reset Deadpool, his mind's been reset, and you also have a lot of returning characters that you might be familiar with from the Deadpool movies, including Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Negasonic Teenage Warhead technically doesn't exist in comic books, but here they hit the reset button, brought her in there in the Deadpool movie version. This is something that those that are just picking up this comic and that because they've watched the movies will fall right in line. They're still able to show that this is one universe, however. There's a lot of scenes in this where the Guardians of the Galaxy crosses over with Deadpool, for example. So Cosmic World is still in place. And in Deadpool 2, you even have the Avengers showing up. So it's still a connected universe. Just because we're relaunching all these books doesn't mean they're all going in different directions. There's still a shared universe, and Scotty Young does a great job of putting his take and making Deadpool as silly and as crazy and as action-filled as you would expect from a Deadpool comic. Immortal Hulk by Al Ewing and Joe Bennett. The covers by Alex Ross are probably one of the most coolest images that draw you into this book. The Hulk is back, and you find out that he just can't die. He can't die, he's always going to be alive, and what I love is Al brings Hulk back to his roots and really embraces the horror genre. I don't like horror. I think those that know me don't like horror books, but this is one book that I've absolutely enjoyed reading, and it's in my pull list. Thor by Jason Aaron and Mike Del Mundo is the Thor and action-adventure fun that we all expect. Jason Aaron's been doing an amazing job on his Thor run, and it's great that he gets to keep telling the story of Thor. And what better way than take Thor on an adventure of collecting weapons and artifacts. The Juggernaut is in the very first issue. I'm looking forward to seeing what more stories we can hear now that Thor is back. He still doesn't have Mjolnir, but he is being creative and still being Thor. Avengers by Jason Aaron and Ed McGuinness. The Avengers are back. One of my favorite scenes is one of the very first scenes where Tony is there with Steve and Thor, and they're just tired. They love to talk about what every one of them's been doing, and they realize that, you know, they need to do something. And at that point in time, the crazy Celestials fall from the sky, and again, this is a task for not just one person, not just two people, not just three people, but an entire team of Avengers. You have some of your favorites, including Black Panther, Doctor Strange is in this as well, but you also have some new characters from an Avengers team, including She-Hulk and Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider. So there are a lot of things going on in here. I think the Avengers are good hands. I haven't been excited about Avengers for a long time. I think it's because Avengers got so serious. There's a lot of crazy things happening. But here, it is comic book fun in the style that you would imagine for an Avengers team. Amazing Spider-Man #1 by Nick Spencer and Ryan Ottley. So I'll be completely honest, I was looking forward to actually dropping this title. I had read Amazing Spider-Man for 10 years with Dan Slott's run, picking up all the tie-ins and just enjoying that series. And I thought that might be an opportunity now for with Dan Slott retiring from Spider-Man, that this might be a good jumping off point. There was probably only one thing that Nick Spencer could do to convince me to stay on this title, and it happened that in #1 he did just that. I'm not going to spoil it, but you definitely want to pick this up to see for yourself. X-23 by Mariko Tamaki and Juan Cabal. X-23 is one of those X-Men titles that is not one of the flagship titles, so it's always one of those extra titles that you could pick up. There's so many X books out there, and they're all so good. I know a lot of fans were a little nervous that, one, Laura's going back to her X-23 title. She's not Wolverine anymore. That definitely hurt a lot of people's expectations for the novel. They didn't want her to go backwards. Tom Taylor did a great job on All New Wolverine and introduced Laura and her little sister Gabby, the honey badger, and I'm pleased to say that Mariko Tamaki picks this book up very naturally. It feels very much like the All New Wolverine series, with her own take, of course. There's a great first storyline here with the Cuckoos. I'm kind of irked that the Cuckoos are back to looking the same again. They had a really cool growth arc where they finally dyed their hairs differently and decided to be different. But there's a reason for them to be back again, and it's kind of a fun action-adventure mystery, but starring Laura and your favorite little sister Gabby, aka Honey Badger. Juan Cabal has so many cool Easter eggs in this book. One of my favorites so far has been the Wolverine telephone. If you ever owned the Wolverine telephone back from the 90s era, they have one here in their apartment. So small little details like that, really appreciate the art and the direction that this book is going. So it's in great hands. Life of Captain Marvel by Margaret Stoll and Carlos Pacheco. I admit that I am not a Captain Marvel follower. I didn't really read any of the Captain Marvel books, but I appreciate the Carol Corps and how devoted the fans are to Captain Marvel. And what I loved about picking up this book was that it reset the story a little bit. They're retelling the origin a little bit of Captain Marvel. She is still who she is, but this miniseries is allowing us as newcomers to really understand what her background is, what her motivations are. And within just this one issue, I was able to get sucked into the world of Carol Danvers and be able to empathize. I'm excited to read this miniseries. I'm excited to see her movie, to see how she fits in everything. And I think this was a real needed to Marvel's Fresh Start to get people to jump in again and learn more about Captain Marvel. Mr. and Mrs. X by Kelly Thompson and Oscar Bazaldua. I can't say enough good things about Mr. and Mrs. X. I definitely thought this summer of surprises was crazy, with not only the Kitty Pryde Colossus wedding, but also the Batman Catwoman wedding. There's a lot of stuff happening this summer, and I'm going to say it right here that the winners are absolutely Rogue and Gambit. This series was called X Classified for quite some time, so if you haven't had an opportunity to add it into your pull box, definitely add it into your pull box. This is a long time coming for just happy things to happen to the X-Men team, and here Rogue and Gambit are off on a space adventure. They take their honeymoon in space, and there's so many cool things that Kelly and Oscar are able to get away with the art. It is a sexy, it is a fun adventure, and you definitely want to be along on this ride. Last but not least is Fantastic Four, and while I have not read the first issue yet, this is probably one of the most highly anticipated books for Marvel's Fresh Start, and it is in the hands of the very capable Dan Slott. We're looking forward to the return of Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman. I think this is just the icing on the cake. We know that Disney is buying Fox and getting these characters back again, and what better way to do it than bring them back together in the comic books as well. This is a highly anticipated comic. There's so many variant covers. There's going to be tons of variant covers in all the other titles as well. I'm definitely picking up a few, and I just can't wait to see Marvel's First Family back. There are a lot of other Fresh Start titles that I didn't mention, and tons of miniseries and ongoing series that haven't been covered with Fresh Start. What I loved about Fresh Start is it was very focused. They had a plan, they had a mission, they knew that they had to refresh a handful of very important characters to the Marvel Universe to tie in with everything that's going on, movies, TVs, and video games, and of course being able to get the characters to a point where new readers can jump on in and enjoy. That's going to be it for this issue. Let me know what you think about Marvel's Fresh Start titles by commenting below, and let me know what you've added to your pull box. You can follow me on Twitter at LeonScorpius. Don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to see more of Comic Support and my crusade to get you to read more comics. Keep nerding out with me, and I'll see you next issue.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you want to watch more from us, click on one of the thumbnails. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep up to date with our latest shenanigans. Be sure to click the bell for notifications, and check out the description below for a link to our Patreon page. See you next time!